Is having systems to run your law firm, is that the answer for a law firm to succeed? And the answer is yes, of course it is, but there's more to it. If you'd like to know the rest of the solution, tune in and find out.
You are listening to the Prosper Law Podcast. Learn how to reduce stress, have more time, and make more money. Come on in.
I'm Greg McCollum, and I built a 7-figure criminal defense law firm. I formed Prosper Law to show criminal defense law firm owners who are desperate for success how to grow from under $200,000 to $1 million and beyond. In today's podcast, I want to talk about are systems the answer? And yes, they are the answer, but there's more. When I first started learning and growing, my coaches, they insisted, they almost yelled at us, build systems. Systems run businesses, and systems do run businesses. And I spend a lot of time building systems or trying to build systems. And the way you build a system is you look at something that's repetitive or something that breaks, something that causes problems in your law firm. If there's something that goes wrong, then the idea is that you go back and look at it and say, why did this go wrong? Why did this go sideways? And this is mostly a management issue. Of course, there's systems for everything, but so what I didn't know at the time is that I would sit in my office. I had learned to carve out some white space and look at issues and listen to my coaches and build systems. And so I'd spend a lot of time on it. I would sketch it out, then I would refine it. And there were two things that held me back. One is that now when I build systems, I don't sit in my office by myself and figure out how to do something. I don't sit in my office and figure out, how are we going to build the widgets? I talk to the people in my law firm, my employees, my team members, my staff members, and ask them questions. And I will tell them, I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking we could do it this way, and then ask them individually what they think. And that's another thing. It's called, psychological safety, but that's a different topic. But the idea is that how do you build systems? And the second part of it is that I put in systems, I built systems, I analyzed it, and my systems were pretty good. They weren't terrible. If somebody followed them, things would work. And the idea is that if somebody knows how to do something and they've got specific instructions, then they know the answer. This is the way I do this, whether it's opening a file, whether it's calendaring court, or whether it's scheduling appointments, whatever it is, when they have a system and a policy and procedure to follow, then they don't have to ask you what to do. They don't have to come knock on your door. They don't have to stand in line to ask you the question. They don't have to ambush you at the water cooler at the copier. They don't have to ambush you right when you walk in the office. So the reason my systems didn't work is because I didn't have the right people. If you look at the 7 parts of a law firm, the 7 pillars of a law firm for success, one of the main pillars, I usually list it as number 3, is people. People are essential. If people don't follow the systems won't work. And so I had a lot of C employees. I had a room full of C employees, but I didn't know it at the time because I thought they were good because they got dressed for work and they came to work and they got to work on time and they worked all day. So I thought they were good employees. I thought they were A players, but I didn't know it. I didn't know anything about it. I really had no idea. And that's because I had not really been exposed to A players. So not only did I have some C players, I had some D players, probably one D player at least. And the D players, if you've listened to other podcasts I've done and talked about this and things that I write about, D players are a nightmare because they're basically working against you. They've got their own agenda. And then at the time, I had a lawyer who was an F player. And if you heard me talk about F players just blow up, which is what he did. And that was the end of that relationship because an F player, that's what they do. They just scream at you and cuss you out in a staff meeting. I'm not sure why, but that's their behavior. So here's the problem. I had the systems didn't work, and then that made me question myself. Like, am I stupid? Do I not know what I'm doing? Are my coaches wrong? I didn't think the coaches were wrong. Why is this not working? And the problem is I didn't have the right recipe. Now, if you have no systems, but you have a bunch of A players and B players, they can pretty much muddle through it. An A player is going to come up with their own solutions and figure out a way to make it work. Now, the problem with that is that if that's not uniform, then everybody's doing something differently. And I think a lot of law firms really work like that. And when you bring in an experienced paralegal, a lot of times, especially a C player or maybe even a B player comes in, and the reason you hired them and the reason they think or believe you hired them, which is probably true, is because you were looking for somebody with experience. So you go find this person who worked in another law firm, maybe similar to yours or different, but still a law firm. So they come in and they do the things the way they were always done. And they think that's the right way to do them. And it may be the right way, it may be the wrong way. The problem is that you hire this person, and then you hire that person, and you hire this person, and they're all supposed to be working together, and they're all their own little domain, and they do their things this way, and this one does his or her things that way, and so it's not coherent. Everything is functioning, but in this microcosm where they're not all doing the same thing. So now everybody's not rowing the boat in the same direction. Everybody's not following the same systems, and so you're just pulled in different directions, and that creates a problem. So in terms of systems, one of the things that I did in my life is I took flight lessons, private flight lessons. And if you look at systems for an airplane, you have the pre-flight checklist. And all a pre-flight checklist is to remember to do everything that you're supposed to do. But without that list, and if you look at airline investigations and NTSB investigations, most of the plane crashes, most of the disasters, or even just a crash where no one's killed, but they investigate them. And the FAA has an excellent system, and the NTSB has an excellent system where they go analyze crashes. It's not the same as a tort system. It's a cooperative system which constantly improves. So consequently, because of the systems, the safest place, do you know the safest place that you could be right now, the safest place you could be in the world right now is on an airliner. That's the safest place to be in the world statistically. Now, it may not feel that way because if a crash occurs, that's terrifying. You have a loss of control. You can't do anything about it. You don't have a parachute or whatever. But that's the safest place, and it's because of the systems. So when I would go for my flight lessons, we go in the general aviation terminal, and there's certain things you do. You look at the weather patterns and then the satellite maps and all of this stuff, and it shows you specific weather, wind, and that sort of thing. Then you go out to the plane and you look at the plane. And if you fly on an airline, if you pay attention, many times you'll see the pilot out there standing on the ground looking at the plane. And that's what we were taught to do. So you look at like on my plane, it was the fuels in the wings and the fuel tanks are there. And so, you have to make sure there's no air in the lines. So this thing you do where you bleed the air out of the lines to make sure the fuel lines are clear. And then you look at the the yoke, and you look at the ailerons, which are, the flaps on each side of the wing, which turns the plane. You look at the rudder. You make sure the rudder's working. And you go through all of these things, and then you get in the plane, and you turn it on, you crank it up, and prior to do that, you move the chuck out from where that holds the wheels. Because once you're in there, you have this list of things, and you're literally sitting there, and you set the altimeter, because an altimeter measures height above sea level. And so if the airport you're landing at is 50 feet above sea level, then the altimeter has to be set for that, because you don't want to fly into the ground. And if the airport you're going to land at is 2,500 feet above sea level, you have to set the altimeter or get the numbers so that once you're in the air and you're going into that approach, your plane knows how high you are above the ground, not above sea level. And so you go through these things, and there's more to it. And then there's a run-up where now you've got permission from air traffic control, so you go taxi out and you get on the edge of the runway and you stop. And there are other systems that you go through. Then you get permission to take off. And they didn't really come up with pre-flight checklists, I don't think, until the 80s. And so, but when they did, flying became exponentially safer. And even to this day, many times when they investigate crashes, they look at someone did not follow the system, and that causes the problems. It's the same thing with your law firm. Is when you're when you're running your law firm, the systems handle everything, just like the pre-flight checklist. It prevents errors, it creates this uniformity, and it creates this kind of predictability. Now, one of the things that I found when I created Prosper at Law is, and I've talked to a lot of lawyers because we would run these targeted ads on social media. We would do email campaigns. If you've clicked on something, then you probably have seen these things. And so when I would have calls with potential members for Prosper at Law, every one of them, every one of them said, "Greg, I want to have systems in my law firm like you." But I don't think they knew what the systems were, or if they're not working with me now, they still don't understand what the systems are, because we were using these I guess they're called CRMs, different things that we use in marketing, which target lawyers that are criminal defense lawyers who own their own law firms within a certain income range, because you can get all that information is available in all this big data world we live in. And so they would say, "I want systems like you." And what I thought, and I still think what they were referring to, is they clicked on something, and then it took them to something else. Then there's a calendar that's a system, and they click on that to schedule a call. And then after that, they get an email reminder, then they get a text reminder. And so they get these reminders that, your call is 48 hours or 2 days away. Get ready for your call. Your call's in 24 hours. Get ready for your call. You get another text message and email. Your call is in 1 hour. Do these things to be ready for your call. And then even 5 minutes before or at the time it starts, it's time to start. So I think they were impressed and mesmerized by this system. And that's a CRM. That right there is not the answer. Now, use CRMs. We use them in our law firm because they are a system. But in a law firm, the systems is a lot more than that. There's so much more than that in a law firm. There's not some magic piece of software that you can go buy that someone's designed that's going to solve the problems in your law firm. It will help. And one of the things is, and just recently I was talking to Taylor, and she runs the front of the office. She runs the reception desk. She does the client care coordination and making sure when people come in, that they have a comfortable experience, so that, and she's in control of that. She also comes in and opens the office. And so just recently, because we moved our office, because we were in a bank building with an elevator, and our office was up on a higher floor or off the ground. And then now we're at surface level. And so, we have our own door. We have our own parking lot. It's different. When you got these double doors, and so you want to make sure that when people come up, they don't pull the door and it doesn't open because that door is locked. Both doors need to be open. You've all been to stores and businesses where you try to go out the door and they were too lazy to unlock the second door. And those kind of things seem trivial, but they're not. They're the key. People know that the famous basketball coach John Wooden, who coached all these future NBA stars who had, I think, the best winning record, I think, at UCLA basketball, one of the biggest win streaks and best program in the history of college basketball, certainly one of the very top ones and one of the early ones. And when he first met with his team, and these are all superstars out of high school that are coming there, the first lesson that John Wooden gave to them is how to tie their shoes, how to put their socks on, and how to tie their shoes. And that seems, if you're this hotshot basketball player, that had to seem kind of confusing or dumb. But opening the office. And so I told Taylor, I said, I want you to write down everything you do to open the office. And then she has a job description, but this has changed a little bit now. And I said, I want it to be, if somebody comes in here and lands in a spaceship and you're not available, that they can read this and know step by step how to open the office. And then if you think about it, how to close the office. Because if the person that closes the office and locks the door at a particular time of the day either doesn't know that's his or her responsibility, and then the door's unlocked all night. The reason that doesn't happen is because there's a system and there's a checklist. And we do that for everything. Now, everything in my law firm is not fixed. Everything is not perfect. And systems evolve and change. But we try to have systems for everything. And there's no end to updating them. So the systems we use, there's a calendar system. And it's specific as to how you put something on the calendar. It's specific to the words you use and also who put it on the calendar. And it's the event, and then the person that put it on the calendar is their initials. And we also have a procedure that if something changes, she doesn't just take it off the calendar, she puts canceled beside it. Because if you don't do that, then you look at the calendar, you've got an appointment, and then you look at it again, and you're like, I know I had an appointment at 11 o'clock on Tuesday. Where is it? Well, that's why it says canceled, because what's that going to do? It's going to eliminate confusion. It's going to eliminate, in that instance, me or my lawyer or whoever sees it missing, because what are they going to do? They're going to call her, or they're going to call somebody, and they're going to say, I thought I had an appointment with client, X. And they go, oh, no, that got canceled. So the smallest little things change how everything operates. We have systems for, like I said, the calendar, in terms of how to do a sales call. When somebody calls in the law firm, and we meet on this every week, and we just had what we call our sales meeting yesterday, and we were going through the system in terms of how do you do a sales call. And it's specific. When one of my paralegals or one of my intake people, I call it the sales team, when they call somebody back. So in other words, somebody's called into the law firm, or they've reached our answering service, and they're interested in hiring us to represent them, when they call them back. certain things have to be said. The first one is, "Hi, I'm I'm Gabby from the Complete Legal Defense Team, calling you back. Is this a good time for you to talk?" Because sometimes it isn't a good time to talk, and so they have to say that. Because if it's not a good time to talk, it's not a good time for them to get clarity to make a decision of whether or not to hire us. Is this a good time to talk? Also, everything that you tell us is completely confidential. And then, this is what I understand about your situation. What is it that we can help you with? What is it that you want? And then stop talking and listen. And there's a whole procedure for this. I teach these calls, and the procedure for this, I teach my members this. And there's a lot more to it than that. But that's the system. So we have a system for everything. And when you have systems and you have good people running systems, then the systems almost become invisible because they're working. If everybody knows what to do, everybody knows who's responsible. And if more than one person is responsible for a task, no one's responsible. So specific systems are the job descriptions, who's responsible, who's supposed to do it. They can get it out and look at it, but they can also look at it and go, you have me doing it this way, but in the practice, I've figured out that we can improve this. And if you have a good team and you have good systems, then that's what will happen. They come back to you and ask for guidance, and we have a cooperative environment where people can, and I encourage people to give me their thoughts and their ideas because they're the ones doing it. If I'm the person that takes out the trash, every day or however often that happens, and I'm doing it, I know how to do it better than the boss or the law firm owner. And so I get that feedback. But ultimately, when your systems are working, they become invisible. They're still there, but they become invisible because things are just working. And that stops interruptions. It stops the fires from breaking out. So many times in a law firm, and certainly for me for decades, I spent my days putting out fires. So if you go through your law firm and go through this, then you correct these things. And you can't do this overnight. You can't, there's no course you can take and have perfect systems in 90 days. You can take a course like that and get started on it. But the systems are the key, just like the pre-flight checklist is the key to make flying safe, the safest place in the world to be on an airliner. So what you want to do is you want these systems in your law firm so your law firm runs like an airliner. Everything's covered. It stops interruptions. It stops problems. It keeps fires from breaking out because everybody's playing their role and doing what they need to do. If you'd like to know more about creating systems in your law firm and how to create a law firm that runs itself without you being there doing everything, reach out to me at Prosperate Law. You can go to prosperateLaw.com and schedule a call. I'd be happy to show you how we can change your life and how we can help you create this in your law firm. I'm Greg McCollum. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
If you want to know more, go to prosperateLaw.com. We show criminal defense law firm owners how to reduce stress, have more free time, and make more money. Thanks for listening.